Welcome to Fernandez Finds Adventure. I'm Mark, and today we're going to be editing some of my car photos. So let's get into it. Photography is one of the favorite things I like to do, and it's because it's so accessible. I started taking photos on my phone, and because cameras now on phones are that good, that's how I got interested in it. And then slowly I'm, kind of graduating up in terms of the types of cameras that I'm using and how expensive the cameras are as well. For those of you that are curious about the gear that I've used today, it's a Nikon D5600, which is my main camera. I would like to show that to you, but I actually use it for my filming, which is what's happening right now. And it's actually filming on my lens that I used for this shoot, one of them anyway. And that's the 18 to 55 millimeter with a variable focal range. Also too, I used this, which is my nifty 50. So my 50 millimeter, and it is a f1.8. And that's really good for getting some close-up details. Not particularly great for getting some of those kind of longer landscape photos, but still very useful. And I will show you very shortly when I used the different lenses, it should show up. So let's get into the actual editing, and I'll show you a little bit about my process and how I actually use Lightroom and how you can too. It's quite easy to use. And if you're already using it, that's awesome. But maybe some of the things that I do might give you a little bit of an insight to how I actually do things and how my process actually works. So you might get a few ideas, and you can have a look at my style as well and see maybe some of the colors that I change and some of the contrasting techniques that I use you might want to use as well. So let's get stuck into our editing. The first thing I like to do when I start editing these photos is I like to make sure I'm nice and comfortable, and also too making sure I don't have anything on my desk, because I like to make sure that my mind is nice and clear and I can focus on one thing at a time. So with that out of the way, the first thing that I actually like to do on the computer is I like to check the clarity, and I like to check how clear and sharp the photo is. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the outside edges to see how sharp I got this photo. And it's actually not too bad, this one. Probably not my sharpest, but it will probably do. The first thing that I like to do is I try to figure out what is my framing going to be like. So when I have a look at this, I can see that I've got quite a lot of empty space up here. It's quite a long photo in terms of how tall it is. So when I go to edit this, it might not make a very good Instagram photo. So if I go and have a look at what my Instagram grid sort of size would look like, it's actually not too bad. So I should still get a little bit of that sky in, and I could Photoshop a little bit more of a interesting sky in later on if I wanted to. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my framing right first, and we can see that there's just a little bit too much space on this side over here compared to this side. So let me just go ahead and fix that. And we can kind of see that we've almost got our lines nice and proportionate, and it's almost symmetrical. Now this wasn't the best angle to take this on, because it's you're never going to get it perfectly symmetrical when it's like this, but it will do, and it will serve for today's purpose. Actually, I don't like that. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can get some more of that road, because that road's going to look nice once I do something very shortly. So we've got this at the moment, which is looking pretty good. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and when I'm editing, it's all about you and all about what you think looks good. So I haven't done any tutorials. I haven't done any, work classes or workshops or whatever it is. I've just basically downloaded it and it's pretty cheap to download on a monthly plan. I just downloaded it and just played around with it, and I just keep going until it looks good. So I'm just going to start playing around now with the sliders. And at the moment, I like to put the exposure up just a little bit. And at the moment, that's a little bit too bright. And I'm not too concerned about that, because when I start adding in things like the contrast, you'll see it starts to darken the photo. So I don't want to go too hard with the contrast just yet. And I will take down some of the highlights. Now, the highlights does take out some of the white on the sharp edges here. So it does actually give me a little bit more depth to my car, to the photos. And in case you didn't know, this is my car that I'm editing here. And the shadows does give you quite a mean sort of a look, a bit more of a moody look, if that's what you're going for. And the moods and the way that I edit my photos, it changes depending on my mood. So I'm not sure what my mood's like at the moment, but we're going to find out. So again, I'm just going to adjust these until I'm pretty happy with them. And then we're going to be a bit more specific with some of the parts that we're going to actually change. So the whites look better, just a little bit lower, and the blacks are going to look good down. And you can see already that it's starting to bring out a little bit more of the car and the shape outline of the car. It's not getting as lost in the background. So let's keep looking here. I'm going to add just a little bit of clarity, not too much. Something happened with Adobe Lightroom a little while ago where you could increase the clarity quite a lot to say like 50 or 40, and it wouldn't look anywhere near as kind of, I guess, like painting like as it does now. So now instead of upping it to like say 25 or 30, I just like to up it maybe to about 15, about half of what I would normally in the past. And dehazing just gives me a little bit more clarity again, more like in these mountains. I always like to add a little bit more vibrance. I find that when I take the photos that the greens aren't normally as green as you would see it. So I'm not going to go hectic like that because it starts to change all the purples and stuff. So I'm just going to give it just a little bit of green, and the saturation I'm just going to increase a little bit as well. And we can see already it's actually a pretty nice photo that's starting to turn out and looking like. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to try and give myself a little bit more detail in this road. And we've got a little bit of rubble here as well, some debris that's in front of the car. So I'm just going to try and make that look a little bit more prominent. It's a big word for a late night. So I'm just going to use a graduated filter, and I'm going to keep the exposure about the same. And I'm going to, and watch this, I'm just going to increase the clarity, and you can increase it a lot, but I'm just going to increase it just a little bit of dehaze, just to give it a little bit of a shadowed look. And I might actually increase that exposure just a little bit and give a little bit of texture as well. And what that has done now is, if we look at the photo from a little bit of a distance now, a little bit from afar, we can see that it's kind of given us that little bit of a textured look at the front, and it kind of leads us towards the car. Now, this isn't my favorite photo of the shoot, but just to warm up, it's kind of good to have a look at some of the colors that we'll be playing around with. So at the moment, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to now just go ahead and look at my presets. And I don't have any presets at the moment, but I am going to take this preset. I'm just going to copy it. And my next photo, and well, we'll have a quick look now actually about how it looks before and after, just using the backward slash key. So that's what it looked like before, and that's what it looks like now. Before, yeah. I always like doing that. It's very satisfying. So let's move on. I'm going to, so I copied my presets from that one there, the previous photo. And to save me a little bit of time, I'm just going to go ahead and click paste. And already that's saved me quite a bit of time on the colors, and it gives me a consistent color for all of my edits, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. Now what I'm going to do with this one needs a little bit of straightening, so we can see that the car's a little bit off. So I'm just going to go ahead and give myself a little bit more of a straighter car. Nope, that's too far over. And if you can hear a noise in the background, that's Ginger. She is having a bit of a dream. So that's how it looks. Not particularly happy with this photo, but again, there's always things that we can improve. I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. This one might have been taken a little bit later on. so it did get a little bit darker. And I might have a little bit of a play around now with the color temperatures. So if you have a look at this temperature here, if you turn it to the left, push it to the left, what happens is it kind of gives it a little bit more of a colder feel. Now I'm not really digging that tonight. So I might actually make it go, and if you double click it, it always brings it back to the original setting. I'm just going to drag it a little bit to the right, actually, just a little bit, just to give it more of a warmer feel. And I'm going to tint it a little bit with the purple. And what that does is it gives it a little bit of purple in the tinge, and it kind of gives it a bit more of like a sunrise, sunset sort of a vibe. So I kind of like that. And again, I'm going to use my graduated filter, and I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. And I'm not going to make it too dark, but I'm going to add a little bit of clarity. And you can see that my focus on this one, I would have taken this with my f1.8 50mm, and none of this is in focus, so it doesn't look that great using the graduated filter, which is okay, it doesn't matter. But just to give it a little bit more of a framing, I am just going to make it a little bit darker. And there's that edit done as well. So that's a before, and that's an after. So it looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. And if I wanted to as well, I'll show you this for this one here, that if I want to change some of the colors of the trees, I don't normally like to do that because I try to take photos and accurately represent them to how I see them in real life. So I'm not big on Photoshop and that sort of stuff. I do it a little bit just to play around with. So I'm going to, if I just go onto my HSL color and I play around with some of these sliders, what you'll notice is that it changes the colors of whatever color you want. So we're going to pick the yellow here. And if we want to, we can kind of make some of these trees a little bit more yellow and give them a little bit more saturation. And what that does, it kind of, by changing the background a little bit, so the good thing is that it's actually changing more closer to the foreground anyway, just behind the car. And what it's doing is that it's kind of making the silver stand out a bit. Silver is a tough color to shoot. Black cars are a little bit easier to shoot sometimes, but your bright yellow cars and things, it's easy to pick backdrops. Silver is a very neutral color, so it's hard to shoot. And if I go over to my green slider now, if I want to, I can push that all the way down and it'll make them like all of the trees like it's autumn, which we don't get in Cairns because we're on the equator. But anyway, but yeah, I might kind of leave that there and increase the luminance. That's going to make it a little bit brighter as well. And I'm pretty happy with that actually. So this is what our edit looked like before, and it's what it looks like after. So not as accurate as like real life, but it's okay. It's something a little bit different, so I don't mind that. Let's keep moving. So this one here I chose for a specific reason because I overexposed it. So that leads me to one of the other things that we should be talking about is, do you overexpose shots? So that means making sure that you have your ISO set either high or your shutter speed is set really low or something like that, where it means that you're going to have a very bright image. Some people like to overexpose some of the shots. I just feel it's better to just shoot it exactly how it should be. So however it looks in the camera, it should be exposed perfectly or as close as you can. Which also leads me to another thing as well, is we should be shooting in RAW so that we can recover some of these cases, like this case we have here, where I can drop the exposure a little bit and it actually won't affect the quality. If you're shooting in JPEG, it will look like rubbish the second you start to try and shift things around. So let's get into the edit of this one. Contrast is going to look good here on the gunmetal wheels. I'm going to decrease your highlights a little bit because this is still very, I'm not getting any sort of detail here. So I'm going to just, I'm going to decrease the shadows on this one, and I'll show you something that I'm going to do very shortly. And again, I'm just going to frame it up This is going to be an Instagram photo for sure. Yeah, that's looking really good at the moment. And again, I'm going to do a graduated filter, and I'm not using my preset that I used before on the previous one. Not really interested in doing that. For this one, it's going to be a little bit different, and I actually will get rid of those greens as well. Yeah, let's get a little bit of clarity and texture. Dehaze. Yeah, that should look really nice. Yeah, that looks really good. I'm getting a lot of texture here, which is looking really good. Wheel's looking a little bit dark at the moment, but that's okay. We'll fix it. I'm going to use a graduated filter, and you can use these however you like. So I'm just going to use this one just to try and bring down some of the whites here. It's looking a little bit too. I'm not getting much detail on this side here on the fender. So let's see if we can just adjust it a little bit. And you can't take too much out of it because it's going to darken the image. So I might bump that up a little bit. All right, well, that's not looking too bad now. I'm happy with that. So let's leave that how it is for now. And I do actually want just a little, I want to target specifically the wheel. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a radial filter, if that my memory serves me correctly, all these key terms. And I'm just going to measure it up to the size of the wheel, just roughly. And then I'm going to invert it. So if I, oh, disappeared. If I scroll down to invert, what happens is whatever I change is going to change just in this area here. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't want it to be underexposed. So at the moment, that's how it looks now. So what I actually want to do is just actually bring a little bit more color to it, a little bit more light, sorry. So let's increase them just a little bit, maybe just the whites a little bit. The clarity, sure, be careful with the clarity because remember it makes it a little bit darker. And I am going to see what those highlights look like. So you see the little difference between no highlights and highlights. Sometimes it's good to put those highlights back in specific spots. So I'm just going to go ahead and click done and see what that looks like now. And that's looking pretty good. I'm getting quite a lot of detail now in the wheel itself. So with a little bit of vibrance and a little bit of saturation, that should make it look pretty good. And the greens, I'm going to get rid of altogether because it's taking away from my photo. And there's a little bit of blue here as well from one of the buildings in the background. And I want to try and get rid of that as well. Just try and make it a very neutral sort of a shoot. Might give it just a little bit of a yellow, just so there's that, just something there, a little bit there. Get rid of some of those blues as well. Okay, and this is what it looked like before. That's what it looked like before, and that's what it looks like after. So not too bad. I'm not sure if we'll get around to that one today, but there are a couple more that I wanted to show you guys. And it was, I went underneath this undercover parking sort of area, and I did get some photos that I thought might be nice to change it up a little bit. So let's have a look. We've already done a wheel one, so we might do, let's have a look at this one here. So this one was an interesting one because I found these two blocks and I was trying to get a shot between them. So I don't know how it's going to turn out. So we'll have a look at that. So let's jump in here and let's pick our framing. And that should be looking pretty good around about now. So when I pick my frame, I just see what does it look like in terms of, am I losing any of my detail? So a lot of my detail is going to be up the top here. There's like a whole bunch of empty black space here that's pretty useless. So let me just see what that looks like now. And yeah, it's not too bad. I don't mind that. I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. Contrast. And just follow the same procedure. Make the blacks a little bit further down. Now in this case, it's pretty interesting because the clarity is actually going to give us a little bit more visibility of the car through shooting here. And I've got a little bit of the rubble here as well, which is going to be pretty nice. Let's go ahead and get that graduated filter out. So I think that's going to look pretty good. And it's going to give us a little bit more framing as well. Yeah, that's going to look pretty awesome. I'm actually going to make it pretty dark. And let's get some clarity going. Oh yeah, that's looking really good. That little bit of rubble there is going to look really nice. Just that little bit there. And I'm going to go ahead and I might change the temperature in this one. Make it a little bit warmer. And I might give it a little bit of vibrance, this one. Just to bring some of the yellows out in the car park and the greens out in the tree. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and use my radial filter very quickly. The wheel. Invert it. Always forget to do that. And I'm just going to increase the exposure just a little bit. Cool. So it is a very rough job there, but that'll do for now. And that's how that one looks like. So that's a before and that's an after. And it makes it look pretty nice and gives a little bit of framing with this pole here as well. So not bad. I might try something a little bit different now. The last two I'm going to edit tonight is this one here and this one here. So I like the framing here. It's very symmetrical. So I'm actually not going to touch what that looks like in terms of the crop. And I'm going to probably make it a little bit of a warmer, maybe a colder. I'll see in a little bit. So again, increase the exposure. Let's do contrast. Let's go a little bit lower on the highlights, lower on the shadows. And I'm just going to keep working my way through this here. Let's get some texture because I've got a lot of that road as well. So I think that's going to look pretty cool once I'm finished. And I'm actually going to add, and if you put too much dehaze, it looks a bit weird. So I'm just going to put a little bit of dehaze on here, a little bit of vibrance, and I am going to make that yellow line pop as well very shortly. I'm going to use my radial filter again on the wheel just to increase that. Make that wheel look a little bit nicer. And don't forget to invert it, as I always keep forgetting to do. A little bit more exposure. Get rid of some of those blacks out of there. Increase the shadow. So it's looking pretty good. Just a quick job there. And I might actually increase the overall exposure of the shot just so I can get that road looking really mean. I love making the roads look really shiny and giving them a lot of texture. So let's give it some clarity. Oh yeah, that's looking really nice. Not much dehaze. And let's go a little bit of the whites. Yeah, that's looking really nice. Looks like that the road's almost wet there. And let's see how I want to go with the color. Do we want to go more cold or a little bit warm with this one? I'm thinking let's go a little bit cold this time. Just a little bit, not much. Probably won't even notice it. And I'm going to go down to my HSL color and I'm going to try and make that yellow pop a little bit and try to make it a little bit accurate as well. Yeah, let's make that yellow really pop for whatever reason. I don't know why. That's what I'm feeling. And the greens, I'm just going to get rid of those greens a little bit. I think it's on the oranges as well. I'm not quite sure what the oranges are doing. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. On this one, we'll see what the profile correction looks like. So sometimes it just increases the whites and gets rid of the shadows a little bit on the edges. Kind of de-warps the image as well, in case you're wondering what that does. And I'm actually really happy with that one. It would actually probably make a really nice wallpaper. So if it was to look like a wallpaper, it would look something like that. So that would look pretty cool, I think. So the last one I'm going to do is just going to be a really quick job. I'm just going to copy and paste the, which one do I want to do? I want to do this one. I'm going to copy and paste the settings from that one, and you can see that the contrast is just making it, it's making it look a bit weird. So I'm just going to get rid of some of that contrast, and there's something else, the texture and the clarity. Yeah, that's what's making it look weird. So I might bring back a little bit of that clarity. And let's go ahead for this one. What am I feeling? I like how shiny this is. That actually turned out really good. Considering how accessible the camera is that I used, it's not an expensive one. It gets some really nice photos. So let's do our graduated filter again. Let's go clarity, texture, all the things that I've shown you guys already and that we've been through. That's looking pretty cool at the moment. I'm just going to leave this one exactly how it is in terms of the framing. And I'm just going to start working my way through. I kind of like the yellow. I'm kind of digging it. Like if I got rid of the yellow altogether, it would look, I don't know, just wouldn't look right. So now what am I going to do? I am going to, it's pretty much perfect how it is, really. I mean, it looks pretty cool. I might just maybe make this one a little bit warmer. Just a little bit. And then maybe put a little bit of purple in it. The purple can kind of give it that sunset sort of a feel. And I'm actually pretty happy with that. So that's what it looked like before, and that's what it looked like after. So got some pretty cool photos here tonight, guys. So thank you for joining me. I'm sorry if it was a little bit boring or if I dragged on a little bit, but this was kind of just me in my zone a little bit, just kind of hanging out, doing what I like to do, which is editing photos late at night. And it's and for me, it's just nice. It's a nice way to unwind a little bit after a long day. And yeah, and it kind of gives me a little bit of motivation to, once I'm finished kind of a set of editing, it gives me the motivation to go out and to take more photos. So I hope that maybe you learned something from this. I'm not sure. Maybe you just wanted to hang out. That's cool too. Just pretty chilled out today in this episode. It rained all day today, so my vibe's kind of just a little bit mellowed out. So yeah, that's kind of it for today's video, guys. So thumbs if you liked and subs if you loved. There you go, that's a good one for you. And I'll see you guys in next week's video.